My hopes of getting any justice would be this video right here. According to my lawyer, it plays no role if I'm on the right side of the law. Frankly, there is no such thing anymore. 2 videos that will give you a subjective view for greater context. The European Union and United Nations have previously criticized Sweden over human rights violations, systematic racism, and discrimination. I'm realizing that the system we live in is built on these fundamentals. After going through this vigorous process, I'm slowly coming to terms with it. That even countries that are supposed to be beacons of democracy and justice, they too have empty graves to shove people in. What I'm faced with is far worse than a jail cell in Sweden. Family and friends allowed to visit, 3 timely meals per day, and maybe, if I'm lucky enough, $500,000 of taxpayers' money as financial compensation, My form of contact with the people I desperately love is over a Wi-Fi connection, the distance greater than 6,700 kilometers away. The touch of my wife, the faces of my friends. I'm forced to survive in a country that I have no connection to whatsoever. No friends, no family. Not even a remote connection throughout my life to a complete alien of a society. And even worse, I'm a complete illiterate there, with no means of survival. On the left, we have a certificate that I studied Greek as my mother tongue and not Bengali. On the right is my kindergarten certificate from 2007 to 2008. I was in Greece from 2006 to 2016. Before all this mess, I was given a second chance in life. A fresh start, if you may. Far away from the abusive household I was brought up in. My suicide attempt in 2018 of November brought me to the doorsteps of social services. A glimpse of my previous chance in life. How I cut my hair, who I should marry, how I should dress myself, what I'm allowed to eat and not to eat. I described that I don't want the abusers to control me to the extent that they do today. I mentioned that I'm not asking money out of greed, rather money for food and clothing. The abuser wants me to live in Bangladeshi standards and not European nor Swedish. My free time and hobbies consisted of looking into computers and being interested in photography. But I did not have the money nor tools for that. The investigators mentioned some needs for me. That the conflicts at home to lessen so that my mental health could better. That the abuser can address me. That the abuser understands the differences in society that I grew up in and the society that they grew up in. That the abuser has understanding for the new norms that I hold myself up to. That the rules at home are reasonable in relation to my age and ability. That I get age-appropriate responsibilities at home. That I get the friends that I wish. That I get to choose my relationship out of my own free will. That the abuser has the tools to limit me and hold me up to my age and ability without it becoming a conflict of abuse or exercise of power. You get the picture. I push myself even harder now, with this new life, overjoyed with the endless opportunities and sheer freedom. I blazed through my extra language courses so I could get into my dream program, photography. After graduating from the extra courses that I had to take, språkintro from my Swedish friends. Roughly $70 for my outstanding presence and ability to take my own responsibilities over my own studies. I honed in on my arts and technical hobbies. Even worked in my field long before graduating. I was overachieving. I even had a couple of solo exhibitions in the process.
Know-it-alls.
This overjoyed new life of mine came crashing down in November of 2020. I was being haunted by an old ghost. It took a different form this time. The home we called Sweden was up for questioning. A questionnaire was sent to my parent from the migration office to assess our ability to remain in Sweden. I fell under my parents' application due to my age. Do you have any underage children that live here in Sweden? Are you applying for a residence permit for you and your child at the same time? Do you have a new relationship with anyone here in Sweden? Do you or your child in any way have adapted to life in Sweden? Have you or your child been subjected to violence in your relationship? Can you or your child return to your home countries if the application fails? Have you or your child other reasons to why you should receive a residence permit in Sweden? Maybe what they really wanted to ask us was if we deserved this life after all. We waited for the rest of 2020. In 2021, we applied for a renewal of our residence permits per the required law, despite them not replying to the questionnaire, essentially served the same exact purpose. 2022, some more waiting, and finally, towards the end of the year, we got a reply. And it's not what we were expecting. They encouraged us to apply for asylum due to the continued and non-stop threats from the abuser. The first interview was in 2023. After major mistake corrections, early 2024 came the results. Still with absurd mistakes.
I'll be a lawyer in this document hearing. Call me Lama the lawyer. They confirm that your documents are legit, or rather assume based on your track record. And they would assume correct, young man. But they proceed with the fact, based on the certificates from the multiple sources to which you so gracefully provided already in 2020. But they have yet to mention that of no matter. You were born in Dhaka, Bangladesh, or you lived with your mother, an older brother. Your mother traveled with you and your brother to Greece, where your father was, and you lived there for 12 years. During your upbringing, you're subjected to physical and psychological violence on several occasions by, just to recap for the dummies at home, you would be 2 years old and 15 when you came to Sweden. Great stuff. You see, we have an advantage since you're still underage and would be easily granted a permit. Let's continue and add this win of a case to my portfolio already. Easiest case in my career. You're a healthy man of working age and a citizen of Bangladesh. That is where you have lived and where your cultural and social background lies. It is also where you have your family and social network. A 2-year-old have a social network. The migration agency has assessed above that you have not made it likely that you have a need for protection against Bangladesh. According to the migration agency, it is possible for you as an adult and working age man, you're under 18, to re-establish yourself in Bangladesh society. You have therefore not made it likely that there is a risk of social exclusion or other. What kind of crack are you selling? Excuse me, French. No big deal, Mr. Photographer. We just correct this mistake with a soft little letter. That should sort things out, swing the boat on the right path, the jiggity jaggedy in the red.
A year later, we got a reply. Mr. Lama Lama was not a good lawyer, turns out.
The year is 2025, and you're a what? An adult. Oh yes, we're fucked. It is indeed evident from the investigation that he has attended school here, speaks Swedish, has friends, has girlfriend, now wife, congrats, housing and employment, as well as having held several photo exhibitions. However, he is now an adult, compared with his bomba-clad case. Upon an overall assessment, the Migration Court thus finds that the circumstances in the meaning of the Aliens Act are not sufficient to be considered as exceptionally distressing. Also, it took 5 years to reply ever since the questionnaire, which they still haven't brought up, despite your continuous referencing. Well, kiddo, I don't make the rules around here. You're fucked. Pack your bags and leave now.
No soft letter would solve systematic laziness. So we fought and pushed against this blatant violation, after firing Mr. Lama Lama the lawyer, of course. The more me and my wife looked into it, the more we realized that there were some that had far less reasons to be granted a permit, let alone permanent residency. Convicted rapists that got a pass. We just couldn't fathom how these decisions came to be, or if they're even legal to start with. So let's look at the law together. According to Chapter 5 of the Alien Act, first paragraph, second section, states that one cannot be deported to a country where he lacks family or any relatives. Same chapter, third paragraph, one cannot be deported if they are married to someone with permanent or Swedish citizenship. I'm married to a Swedish citizen. I fill up both criteria, both individual and the criteria together to qualify for a permit. The rest of the Swedish laws are more or less similar, if not the same, as European Convention laws, also known as human rights laws. So let's look at those. More specifically, how the Swedish Migration Office interprets them. Based on their own documentation, of course. Here's the document in question. The methodology. In summary, authorities must consider whether the decision respects the right to private life and family life under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. This includes looking at case laws from the European Court and Swedish Migration Court of Appeal, taking into account factors like legal residency, family ties, and any criminal history, and carefully balancing all interests involved. We'll look at the step-by-step on the right in a second. Family life is recognized in relationship involving close family members, such as spouses, for married couples. Family life is considered to exist at least from the time of marriage, and typically assume that they live together or at least plan to. The same protection can also apply to unmarried couples who have lived together in a committed relationship. A relationship between a child and their parent is considered protected family life under Article 8 of European Convention from the moment the child is born. While such a family bond can be broken, for instance, if the parent separates from the child, it isn't automatically lost just because the parents don't live together and the child lives with only one of them. Living together is not a criteria for there to be a family life between a minor child and their parents. Family life can also exist between adults, young adults, and their parents, as long as there is a relationship of dependency between them. Similarly, family life may be recognized between siblings or half-siblings if they have lived together and maintain contact. The same can apply to other close relatives under certain circumstances. Private life. Article 8 also protects the right to build and develop relationships with others and the society as a whole. This means that social connections between a person and their surroundings can form a private life, protected under the Convention. When evaluating whether someone has established a private life, factors like language skills, extended family ties, work, education, and length of stay of the country is considered. Even in the absence of a family life, deportation can still violate the right to respect for one's private life. Is the decision proportionate? The state must strike a fair balance between the individual's right and the society's competing interests. This means weighing the individual's right to respect for their family and/or their private life against the opposing public's interest. Case law from the European Court of Human Rights shows that the Convention provides stronger protection for those who have legally resided in the country in question, compared to those that have never had a legal residency, such as residence permits. Lastly, the state's interest of regulated migration. Regulated migration covers things like national security, economic well-being, and preventing disorder. The state may have economic reasons, like needing financial support for family reunion or limiting costs related to healthcare. The state also wants to ensure that people applying for residence permit can prove their identity. Finally, the state has right to protect itself from threats to public safety and order. However, any action affecting family or private life must be reasonable and not excessive. Now let's recap this mess, using the step-by-step from the previous page that we skipped. Does the action violate the right to respect for private and/or family life? A. Is there a private life and/or family life protected by the Convention? So let's answer that question. Private life. Language skills, extended family ties, work, education, and length of stay in the country is considered, is what they quoted. I'm fluent in Swedish and went to school here. My family, or any family ties that I ever had, are exclusively in Sweden. I work, not just part-time, but full-time with a secure position while even filling in the criteria for a work permit. My education is in Sweden, and I have graduated in Sweden. My exhibitions, the abusive past, which is very well documented by many different authorities. About 7 different authorities that I can count. My stay in Sweden has been legal, long enough for me to build a life here, form and establish these connections and contacts, my only contacts. Family life, by law, my relationship with my parents is still valid since I'm a young adult, and they rely on me due to their sicknesses. My sibling, who already has a Swedish residence permit, which should strengthen the family life argument. My nephew, my wife, my in-laws, and let's not forget that even if there isn't a family life, it would still count as a violation to the convention due to me having such a strong private life. 2 for 2 so far. B. Does a decision or action interfere with the right to respect for private or family life? Deportation or refusal to grant me a residence permit would disrupt my family life with my wife, as well as my social life and career and education in Sweden. I have strong personal and family ties in Sweden, and removing me would violate my rights to remain with my family and my friends and pursue my career. Legality and proportionality. Does the decision have the support in law, and is it necessary? We already answered the law part. Now let's see if it's necessary for the benefit of the general public or the public's interest. I have not committed a crime or suspected of any crimes. No missed payments, not even a delayed payment. No unpaid taxes. I have finished my basic education. I provide for myself and for the people around me. I have my own housing. I'm not a threat to society based on my psychologist's reports. And I'm doing even better ever since escaping domestic violence. B. Is the decision proportional? Now my favorite part, proportionality in this case. Let's recap the lack of connection to my country of origin. Born there, but I left at the age of 2. I don't speak the language. I don't have any relatives, nor friends, nor any connections in that country. Don't have any cultural ties, despite what migration has claimed. Don't have any social network. No housing, no work, no friends, no education, and the threats from the abuser. You get the picture. Somehow, according to Migration Office and the whole chain of command, I'm Bengali, without even visiting the country, with connections to the country that ended at the age of 2, and somehow is significant enough to send me back for so-called reintegration. In their logic, all adoptees should be deported to their countries of origin. Just pure discrimination. Migration Office and the whole chain of command breaks Article 8 with a scorching red-hot knife, and Article 8 of discrimination, which I haven't even touched up on. There isn't a case in Sweden as clear and packed with this many undeniable factors. It just doesn't add up. The guy who worked part-time, lived in Sweden for 2 years, and was in his middle ages were granted a permit. As mentioned, the previous cases, the convicted rapist, whose argument was that he's reformed now. A divorced lady who had a company for a year was granted a permit. A family who stayed in the country illegally was granted a permit without any asylum arguments. Instead, it was their connection to Sweden that was established during their illegal years. And countless more cases that the Migration Office refers themselves in their interpretation document for Article 8. Why? Why am I a lesser human being? even after doing everything right. Proof from the same country that the case is held in. Signed in contact information of my teachers, vouching for me. Friends signing and giving out their social security numbers, alongside phone numbers and emails, in retaliation of this dreadful deportation. Investigations and therapist reports as far as 2018, saying the same story and pointing the finger towards the abuser, who is somehow a Swedish citizen. In a fit of anger, I looked up if I could sue or get the people enforcing these laws to take action against this. The Chancellors of Justice, the Parliamentary Ombudsman, and Discriminatory Complaints. 3 different entities with the same response. We are not interested in investigating your case, but your opinion matters. Thanks, I guess. No different from the carefree response that Kian Bruce received in his struggle to enforce European consumer laws against Mojang or Mojang. Law and order is an illusion. I'd like to thank you for your contribution as a viewer, as a person who donated for my own deportation ticket. I'd like to thank Kian Bruce and Andreas from the Market Exit for making me feel seen and inspiring me.